Hello, First Christian Church friends. It's great to be together with you again today as we continue our journey through the Gospel according to Luke. Just as a reminder and maybe as an encouragement, I'm going to be reading from Luke 8, verses 40 to 56, but I want to encourage you to go back and look at the rest of chapter 8 from the beginning, just to have the sense of the healing, authority, teaching, power tour that Jesus is on throughout the basin of the Sea of Galilee, the lake there. Jesus is in the process of instructing, but also of demonstrating his authority and his power and using it to heal people that might otherwise be left out or cast aside, especially from or by those who have power or who are in control of life in that region. So today it is Luke 8, verses 40 to 56. This is a very famous story and the famous characters from the scriptures, even if we might be used to reading them in other gospel texts. This is one of those stories that finds its way in more than one gospel. Its placement here in Luke towards the conclusion of Jesus' ministry in Galilee, even or just before he begins the journey from Galilee to Jerusalem, is on purpose. But it continues to serve the narrative of how Jesus comes to teach, to transform, to restore, to heal, to reach those that the powerful might ignore, leave behind, exclude, or judge unfairly. Here in this case, we have the balance of how Jesus reaches out to serve those in all kinds of places in the world equally, that he cares for the ones with the standing to approach him, so-called, and he cares for those who have to sneak their way up just to get close to him, and yet they experience the same kind of power to heal as those who might be officially approved for his attention. Luke 8, verses 40 to 56. Jairus, the hemorrhaging woman, the disciples, Jesus, the countryside. Those are the important characters and places as we read the story. On his return, that is, on his return from his healing of the man oppressed by the demons, the legion, who had been clothed and sitting in his right mind in the temple before Jesus. We looked at that text 2 weeks ago. On his return from there, Jesus was welcomed by a crowd. They were all there expecting him. A man came up, Jairus by name. He was president of the meeting place. That is, he was in charge of the synagogue in the town. He was the one who led the learning and religious community there. He was president of the synagogue. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his home because his 12-year-old daughter, his only child, was dying. She was sick. Jesus went with him, making his way through the pushing, jostling crowd. In the crowd that day, there was a woman who for 12 years had been afflicted with hemorrhages. She was bleeding. She had spent every penny she had on doctors, but not one had been able to help her. She slipped in from behind and touched the edge of Jesus' robe. At that very moment, her bleeding stopped. And Jesus said out loud to the crowd, to his disciples, not so much to himself, loud enough for someone to respond to him, he said, "Who touched me?" Maybe even seeking specifically for the woman who had snuck up behind him just to get the hem of his garment and experienced healing. Who touched me? When no one stepped forward, Peter said, "But Master, there are crowds of people here. Dozens of people have touched you. Jesus insisted, someone touched me. Not a passing graze or just a friendly pat on the back. Purposefully, meaningfully touched him. I felt power discharging from me. Just let that sit for a minute. I felt power discharging from me. In a lot of ways, there's that implied sense of he knew that he had it wasn't just, it's not like electricity and a jolt and a spark. It might feel like that, but really what he's talking about, he felt the power to heal. He felt his touch meaningfully move from him, that it was transferred from himself to another human being. He knew someone had done this. But there's such a crowd. And she came up from behind. And he wants to know who it is. He's interrupting his journey, stopping, waiting, looking to discover who it was who had come to receive this blessing he knew had left him. When the woman realized that she could not remain hidden, she knelt trembling before him. She's frightened, but also amazed and wondering, is it too good to be true? In front of all the people, she blurted out her story, why she touched him and how at that very moment she had been healed. Jesus said, "Daughter, you took a risk trusting me." Now, I heard a speaker this week at a leadership conference who spoke a little bit about what was the tone of Jesus looking at her and calling her daughter. It was not scolding. It was not discouraging. It wasn't, who do you think you are? It was more like, oh, daughter, dear, wonderful, beautiful, beloved daughter who is afraid even to come into my presence. Oh, daughter, loved one, beloved, here, let me wrap my arms around you. You don't have to sneak up on me anymore. Daughter, you took a risk trusting me, and now you are healed and whole. Live well, live blessed. What an amazingly beautiful moment. Very quickly, the moment between Jesus and the woman, it's not even just that it passes, it's that it's interrupted by representatives from the community that he's going to, the other end of the trip, Jairus' household, his family, his location. While he was still talking, someone from Jairus' house came up and told Jairus in front of Jesus, "Your daughter is dead. There is no need now to bother the teacher." Sadness, grief, tragedy. Jesus heard this, and he said to Jairus, "Don't be upset. Maybe even don't be afraid. Don't be troubled. Just trust me, and everything will be all right." Going into the house, Jesus would not let anyone enter with him except Peter, John, James, Jairus, and the child's mother. Everyone was crying and carrying on over her. And Jesus said to all of them, "Don't cry. She's not dead. She's sleeping." And they laughed at him. It wasn't that hopeful laugh. It was, bless your heart, Jesus. It was that laughter of, don't be ridiculous. Don't be stupid. We know dead. This girl is dead. They knew it. But Jesus gripping her hand, said, "My dear child, get up." And the child was up in an instant, up and breathing. And Jesus told them to feed her, give her something to eat. Her parents were ecstatic, rejoicing. Their dead daughter was alive and she was well, she was healed, and what a wonderful moment. And Jesus somehow tells them, how is this possible? Tells them to keep quiet about it. Don't tell anyone what happened in this room. In some ways, it's that gospel secret. In the other, it is just allow her being alive and well, and the fact that Jesus was the one to bring life and healing back to her, let it speak for itself. It needs no explanation. The people wouldn't really understand anyway, but here it is. She was dead and now she's alive. Thanks be to God. And this story, the healing of the bleeding woman and the raising of Jairus' daughter, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Jesus is on a healing power authority tour. His power to heal and his authority to teach is drawing people to himself. Jesus is available to all who would seek him, from the synagogue official to the woman who was untouchable. Do we have faith? Faith to reach out even though we think or anticipate we might be rejected? Do we have faith to keep trusting Jesus even when the news is not good and we're challenged to give up hope and to just be in despair? Jesus says to us, one way or the other, one way or the other. You took a risk trusting me, and now you're healed and whole. Or don't worry, don't cry, trust me, and everything will be all right. Will we walk with Jesus and hear those assurances and believe them? There's our question for the day. Go in peace, my friends. Amen.